This dog got nationwide fame in the most miraculous of ways. He and his owner were walking across the airport's main hall when the attentive canine suddenly focused on an unassuming drain cover on the floor. Airport staff quickly got involved, but no matter how much they tried, the dog wouldn't budge an inch from the drain. And when staff members got closer, they suddenly realized why. But before we start, smash the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. The dog in question was named Wilson, a 7-year-old brown dog who had just flown over 2,000 miles from Denver to Boston. He was ready to leave the plane that carried him, and his owner, Mary, was already waiting for him by the baggage drop terminal. All traveling pets would enter the airport there, and Wilson's owner nervously waited for him to be in her arms again. Mary worried for her dog's well-being because she had never flown with him before, and leaving him behind in the plane's cargo space just felt wrong. But just a few moments after being reunited with Wilson, those worrying thoughts were the last thing on her mind. Because what Wilson did next would dominate the rest of his owner's day completely. After a big hug, Mary and Wilson entered the airport's main hall. From there, people could get onto other flights and reach taxis, which would take travelers into town. And that was where Mary and her dog needed to go next. But a taxi ride home would have to wait, because just a few minutes after entering the main hall, Canine Wilson had made other plans. Mary saw the taxi drivers standing outside and turned her body toward the glass doors leading to them. But right before she reached them, Wilson suddenly pulled harshly on his leash in the opposite direction. He clearly did not want to go outside and had his mind set on another part of the building. Mary looked at her dog and saw him constantly pointing his ears and sniffing. It wasn't like Wilson to not follow Mary's. He was very attached, so normally he stuck to her like a magnet on metal. So, for the brown shepherd to sharply pull away from her was odd. At first, Mary figured that it must have been the confusion that still lingered within him from that long cargo flight. But soon, she found out that it had an entirely different reason. "We will be home soon, boy," Mary said to her dog, who became more restless by the minute. His leash tightened, and pretty soon, Mary had a hard time holding on. Her dog was strong, and Mary had never been in a situation where she noticed it this much. It started irritating Mary, so she pulled on the leash harshly this time, much to her dog's dislike. Wilson growled at his owner, which startled Mary, and that initial shock caused Mary to lose grip just for a moment. Her hands spread out a bit, and by doing so, she dropped her suitcase, causing it to open up all over the airport floor. And that was not all that happened, because Wilson also took notice of this situation. The clever dog used this moment to usher in his escape. While Mary crouched down to refill her suitcase, her mind was occupied, allowing Wilson to escape her grasp fully. He loosened the tension on his leash for just a moment, but then ran with all his might away from his owner. The pure power caused Mary's other hand to open up completely, letting Wilson escape and run away. The now freed dog sprinted across the airport's main hall. Mary screamed his name, but its effect was disappointing. Wilson didn't even flinch and simply kept running in a straight line. The worried Mary saw her dog disappear into a sea of people, all unaware of what had just happened. "What is up with that dog?" Mary said to herself. She quickly repacked her clothes and followed in her dog's direction. The suitcase wheels rolled across the airport floor while Mary pushed travelers aside to get to her dog. Many people were in this one space, but as she got closer, they made it easy to find Wilson. That was because most of them had their heads turned the same way. They all faced Mary's missing dog, who had found his target in the corner of the main hall. Mary slowed her pace and walked over to the spot where a small group of people circled her pet. There was a buzz going on. People were chatting amongst each other, all wondering what was going on with this dog. This was exactly what Mary also wanted to know, so she pushed her body through the dense crowd to reach her poor, confused pet. But Wilson wasn't confused at all. He had a very clear reason for being where he was. He wanted to show his owner and everyone around him something very important, but he just didn't have the means to communicate that properly, so he used the only tools he had available. The focused canine started whining and scratching on the floor, mostly making contact with a small water drain in front of him. After Wilson noticed that people were paying attention, He even doubled down by pushing his nose toward the round roster. "Is there something in there that he wants us to see?" one of the onlookers said out loud, onto which Wilson instantly barked. Mary was also captivated by this unusual display. She addressed the crowd, stating that he was her dog, and apologizing for the inconvenience. The pet owner grabbed Wilson's leash once more, trying to pull him away from the drain, but that would turn out to be impossible. Wilson snarled, wept, and barked like a dog possessed, not wanting to leave the drain cover for just a moment. Wilson's outburst quickly attracted attention, including airport staff. One of the security guards stepped in, asking bystanders to clear the area. He approached Wilson gently and observed his behavior with concern. The dog whined but continued pressing his nose to the drain. Curious and cautious, the guard called for tools to open the cover and see what had so completely captivated the dog. Two staff members used a crowbar to pry open the tightly sealed grate. After some effort, they lifted it, revealing a hollow space below. Wilson immediately pushed his nose into the opening and began sniffing the air intently. The guard clicked on his flashlight and shone it down the drain. Onlookers held their breath, anticipating something dramatic. Whispers of hidden treasures or illegal substances circulated. But when the guard came back up, he had little to report, just some discarded wrappers and dust. Slightly disappointed, he began to lower the grate back into place. That's when something unexpected happened. A faint sound rose from the drain, so subtle, only the guard crouched near the opening could hear it. Wilson, still beside him, also reacted. The man glanced at the dog. "Did you hear that too?" Wilson whined again. Trusting the dog's sharp senses, the guard leaned closer. The man in the blue jumper replied that it flowed outside the building but passed close to the airport's ventilation system. That fact worried them. The sound had a human tone to it, possibly someone in distress. To avoid causing panic, the staff quietly led Mary and Wilson to a remote office, believing the dog might still be helpful. Mary agreed without hesitation. Inside the office, they pulled out blueprint maps of the airport. The utility worker traced the drainage line's path from the main hall to the north wall. It was a narrow pipe too small for any person or animal to move through. Then he pointed to a ventilation shaft running beside the pipe. It was wider and more plausible as the source of the sound. The real question now was, where exactly did that shaft lead? The airport security guard, the utility worker, Mary and Wilson, carefully studied the airport blueprint. The layout revealed a complex maze of drainage and ventilation paths, making it difficult to determine where the mysterious sound had originated. It was clear, however, that further investigation was needed. Just as the utility worker began tracing possible routes, Wilson suddenly perked up and stared at the door, ears alert. Mary recognized his behavior and allowed him to lead the way. Wilson moved with purpose, guiding the group through the airport. They followed him past crowds and down long corridors that grew quieter and more deserted. Eventually, they reached a restricted construction area and expansion wing not yet open to the public. The workers explained that this part of the building was rarely accessed. Wilson stopped in front of a locked metal door and barked insistently. The utility worker unlocked it, warning that once closed, it could only be opened with a key. As soon as the door opened, Wilson rushed inside. The team followed, their footsteps echoing in the vast unfinished space. Mary called for Wilson, but the silence lingered. They moved deeper into the area, past dust-covered equipment and plastic-covered walls, until a distant bark broke the stillness. Encouraged, they followed the sound and began hearing a soft weeping clearer now than before. Wilson had led them straight to its source. Rounding a corner, they found an elderly woman sitting on the cold floor, wrapped in a blanket. Tears streamed down her face, but relief washed over her as she saw them. Wilson sat calmly beside her. The woman introduced herself as Judith. She explained that she had accidentally wandered into the construction area while looking for a restroom. Disoriented and unable to find her way out, she had remained trapped for an entire day. Judith had been en route to meet her husband on vacation, but became lost before reaching her gate. She expressed deep gratitude, still shaken by the ordeal. The airport guard reassured her that she was safe, all thanks to Wilson. Mary told her that Wilson had sensed something was wrong, even before anyone had called out. Judith shared a curious detail. She had only started calling for help about 20 minutes earlier after hearing a dog barking through the vents. That detail puzzled everyone. How had Wilson known something was wrong before she ever made a sound? The workers exchanged puzzled looks. Wilson's instincts had seemed almost supernatural, but there was no time to dwell on the mystery. They needed to get Judith out safely. They returned to the main area where medical staff examined her. Apart from mild dehydration, Judith was in good condition and ready to resume her trip. Airport staff arranged for her to continue her journey and reunite with her husband. Word of Wilson's actions spread quickly. News outlets picked up the story, and Mary spoke to journalists about how her dog had found Judith when no one else could. People were astonished by Wilson's loyalty and sharp senses. Wilson became a local hero. The airport staff held a small ceremony in his honor and presented him with a medal. Judith, still on vacation, joined via video call to thank him once more. Mary watched proudly as Wilson wagged his tail, unaware of his new fame. To him, it had been instinct and need to help someone in trouble, but to everyone else, it was a story of loyalty, bravery, and a dog who made all the difference.